What's up, guys? So doing some more Fortnite footage today because I didn't really have anything to record today. I woke up extraordinarily late because I stayed up extraordinarily late. We went down to Henry County and we watched Avengers, which is what most of this vlog will be about. I just figured that it'd be better to throw it over some Fortnite footage than to just have my face sitting in the game room for 10 minutes. Although this is a really good run, I cropped out all of the walking and, well, most of the walking and most of the dumb shit. So this is still a really good run. Drop tilted. Funnily enough, before I get to Avengers, just something to note as you watch the video. Crazily enough, if you look, almost none of the people I fight, in fact only one person that I fight, had shield. I think like out of the 8 kills I got, I think 5 or 6 of them were one-shottable by like pretty much anything. I know at least 3 were absolute when I got to them, and then I think 7 out of 8 didn't have shields, so it was a really lucky run in that regard, but I feel like I played the map really, really well in this, and I felt like I definitely stealthed some people. Anyways, so I'm going to talk about Infinity War now, which if you haven't seen it, please skip to the end of the video, or you can just close the tab if you want, that's okay too, but I'm going to be talking about some spoilers and just kind of giving my general thoughts about the movie. So like I said, spoilers ahead. That is your final warning, and we will begin. So I obviously really like the movie. I think that there are few people who you could find to say that it was a badly made movie. I don't know that they would be correct when they said it, but I think that everyone can be in agreement in that the movie was very well produced, very well shot, very well edited. The cinematography was great. The set design was great. The just production value overall is obviously Marvel's largest to date, but I think that it did a lot of things really well in terms of writing and in terms of how they set up the story, insofar that if you look at how they set up a lot of the Marvel movies, you know, it's centered around a titular character, right? And even the Avenger movies sort of sag under the weight, the first two, of having to bring together a lot of other characters. I think something that they did that was really clever in this movie is that they used Thanos as sort of the linchpin to tie together all these disparate stories to make this just a movie about Thanos, really. Right? They could have just called this Thanos Infinity War, and I think it would have still been as apropos as Avengers, him being such a centralized character to everything. So a couple of things that I want to touch on. Obviously, I think that Doctor Strange is playing the long game, right? Doctor Strange saw in his one possibility out of 14,605,000. I think that, you know, Star-Lord hitting Thanos, and I think that him giving him the time gem and everyone, you know, disappearing in the end, I think that's all part of his master plan, right? That's all part of his game. So I don't think that there's really anything to worry about the characters that disintegrated. I would hazard a guess to say all of them, or all of them except maybe, honestly, all of them. I can't even think. Maybe Falcon would be the only one that I could see staying dead, namely because there's a third Guardians of the Galaxy movie that's already out, or already been slated to come out. There is a second Spider-Man, and Black Panther was way too profitable for them to keep T'Challa dead. I don't think Bucky will stay dead, because I think that, so a little tangent, but the Russo brothers basically said that, kind of admitted, like, yeah, we already have these movies slated, so obviously, like, they're not, you know, something's going to happen, but they said that they wanted to have a weight and a gravidity to it that escalated further from, you know, what's happening currently with Thanos. And so, and this is some comic book spoilers. So don't listen to this if you haven't read the comics or care about it. But Steve Rogers ends up dying, and Bucky Barnes takes over the mantle of Captain America in the comics. And with Chris Evans' contract being done at the end of Avengers 4, and Sebastian Stan having another like 6 movies, it seems pretty obvious that they're going to follow that plot line. And so I think that part of Avengers 4 will be Captain America sacrificing himself in some way to bring back the other people. So it sort of fulfills that, like, you know, how he was talking about, you know, we don't trade lives and everything. I think that that is going to sort of run its natural conclusion to the point of Captain America having to sacrifice himself to bring everyone else back. Although, when I say everyone else, I definitely think it's going to just be the disintegrated people. I would say that Loki is definitely dead. Also, I believe Tom Hiddleston's contract ran out with this movie, so that seems to be a safe bet. I think that Heimdall, while minor, I think he's definitely kicked the bucket, because a really big driving force for this movie is the parallel between Thanos and Thor, how they both lost their entire world, they lost everyone in their family, but they're pursuing two very different paths. I would be shocked if Gamora comes back, even though there will be a third Guardians of the Galaxy movie, as I think that would definitely take away from the emotional arcs of this movie, both with Thanos and Star-Lord. So I don't foresee her coming back. One thing that I would find pretty interesting is if they don't bring Vision back in some capacity. Obviously, the Mind Gem seemed to have a big helping hand in his sort of sentience and human-like qualities, but I don't see why they wouldn't be able to sort of cobble together that code, or like how there isn't a backup of his code somewhere that Tony has. So I think that is a possibility that he'll come back, especially considering the sort of very quickly cobbled together romantic angle that they put together with him and Scarlet Witch. And there was obviously like tangents of that in Civil War and everything. But I certainly think that they played too much into that to let that just have to like die completely. I'll be curious to see how that works out. So yeah, speaking of Scarlet Witch, that is a minor gripe that I have with, I guess, the way they're doing the sort of like relative power levels in the MCU right now. Because the Russo brothers said, like, you know, they said if there were trading cards, Captain Marvel's, power level would be, way higher than everyone else's. And while Carol Danvers is certainly a badass, I don't think by any means she's more powerful than, like, ostensibly what Thor is right now, which is like Odin Force Thor. I don't think she's more powerful than Doctor Strange. I don't think she's more powerful than fucking Adam Warlock. Or Scarlet Witch, all of whom have been introduced in the MCU. Adam Warlock was the end post-credit scene for Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So I thought it was strange that Scarlet Witch, they sort of just teased at her power level, and they made her seem like, by saying that, like, Nick Fury being like, the world is like ending, I need to call Captain Marvel, like that was like his like fucking trump card, seems strange, because I like the fact from a power level standpoint that they did have all these people blasting through Thanos, and then Scarlet Witch manages to not only hold off Thanos for a little bit, but also use her power to destroy the Mind Gem at the same time, and it really showed that Scarlet Witch is fucking strong, right? Like, Thanos actually had to, like, oh shit, I have to kind of use the power of the gauntlet to you know, beat her power, which is something I think is definitely in line with the comics, but you don't really see a whole lot of that elsewhere. Other than that, I really think that those are like really my only complaints with the movie overall. I thought it was very humorous. I thought that all the different styles of humor, from Tony Stark's signature Stark snark to Doctor Strange's sort of like deadpan delivery and like sort of like not really pseudo intellectualism because he is very smart, but just like his intellectual sort of like wit to like Spider-Man's one-liners, which I mean Tom Holland is doing a fantastic job actually doing what I feel like portraying Spider-Man is. Like, especially if you fucking read the Spider-Man comics, like the original comics, like Spider-Man's a fucking punk, right? He is like a high school kid, and he, even when he's like winning against his foes, and he's like fighting them, he's like making fun of them, and he's like picking on them because he's a fucking like 14 or 15-year-old kid, right? Like, and that I think is something that this iteration of Spider-Man does very, very well. It also helps that, he doesn't look like a fucking adult. Like, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire look like adults. Like, at least Tom Holland still looks kind of like a kid. He could still pass for a high schooler. So I think that it's, incorporating all of those different styles of humor into the same movie could have been really tacky and could have been really corny, but they managed to do it very well. I would have liked to have seen more, info, just more like character, not really development, but just like more like input from some of the like secondary and tertiary characters. Like Black Widow could have said a little bit more. Like even Captain America was pretty absent in the movie overall. T'Challa didn't have a very big role, but like those are just extraordinarily minor nitpicks for the fucking film equivalent of just literally probably the greatest film of our generation so far in terms of ensemble movies. But yeah, those are my thoughts. I'm pretty sure I went over time, so you probably just have a still frame right here. But I will talk to you guys tomorrow.